Some men try to impress. Some men try to persuade. Some men try to be liked. And all of them fail. Because what truly captures a woman isn't what you say. It's what she feels in your presence when no words are spoken. You've seen it before. That man who walks into a room says nothing, yet every woman turns. Not because he's loud, not because he's flashy, but because he radiates something she can't name. A charge, a pull, a spell she didn't agree to feel, but now can't stop chasing. And here's what no one told you. That pull isn't random, it's engineered. There are 8 psychological triggers that activate a woman's primal obsession without you ever needing to speak. These triggers work because they bypass her logic and speak directly to the unconscious part of her that decides attraction, trust, and memory. Every point you're about to see is a weapon, and every weapon changes how she sees you, feels you, and remembers you. So listen closely, because every trigger is extremely important to understand, especially the last one. It's the one that silently haunts her dreams, long after you've walked away. Trigger number 1, the unreadable face. She's used to reading men, their need, their approval, their emotions worn like open wounds across their face. But when she looks at you and sees nothing she can decode, her mind doesn't relax, it spirals. Because silence in a man isn't emptiness, it's threat, not violence, not chaos, but unpredictability. She doesn't know if you're into her or already past her. She doesn't know if you're bored or studying her weaknesses. And that ambiguity, it becomes addictive because the female brain is wired for pattern detection. And when it can't decode you, it keeps scanning, keeps thinking, keeps obsessing. Your power isn't in words, it's in presence. And when that presence refuses to be defined, she fills in the blanks with fantasy, fear, fascination. And fantasy is more powerful than anything you could ever say. Let her guess, let her wonder, let her feel like she almost understands you, because that almost is where obsession begins. Trigger number 2, the controlled stillness. In a world of frantic men, one who moves slowly, who holds still while others fidget, becomes dangerous without lifting a finger, because movement reveals nerves. Stillness, it radiates control. You don't chase energy, you anchor it. You don't flinch when there's silence, you command it. This doesn't mean standing like a statue, it means moving with precision. Like every breath is deliberate, like every glance is measured, like your body is a weapon that doesn't move unless it must. And she feels it, deep in her nervous system. Why is he so calm? What does he know that no one else does? Why do I want him to move? Just so I can feel what happens when he does. That tension you build in stillness. It doesn't push her away, it pulls her in, because your lack of reaction becomes a mirror, and in that mirror, she sees herself unraveling. She fixes her hair, she adjusts her tone, she tries harder, just to get a response. That's not attraction. That's obsession through imbalance. You've become the one who cannot be shifted. And when a woman senses that level of control, her unconscious surrenders. Not because she wants to, but because stillness in a man feels like danger she doesn't want to escape. Trigger number 3, the precision gaze. Most men look, some stare. The rarest pierce. Your gaze, when weaponized properly, becomes a psychological scalpel, cutting straight through pretense, sliding beneath her armor, and triggering biological submission without a single touch. But here's the secret. It's not just eye contact. It's where you look, how long, and with what energy. You don't look at her like she's an object. You don't look at her like she's above you. You look at her like you've already seen her without the mask. And now you're deciding what part of her to allow into your world. That gaze, it's not needy. It's not searching, it's diagnosing. She feels seen, but not approved. She feels examined, but not chosen. And that unsettles her, because women are used to gaze as praise. But your gaze is judgment, unspoken, unapologetic, undeniable. Her breath will shift, her posture will adjust, her heart rate will climb, because your eyes don't ask permission, they implant tension. That tension becomes the loop she must close. Why did he look at me like that? What did he see? Why am I still thinking about it? Hours later, in bed, eyes closed, replaying that moment. You're not staring. You're implanting an obsession file into her subconscious. And long after the moment ends, she's still trying to decode the message behind your eyes. Because your gaze wasn't attention, it was possession, disguised as curiosity. Trigger number 4, the unspoken boundaries. She watches how far she can go before a man breaks, before he apologizes, before he compromises, before he trades his values for validation. Most men fold, but when she encounters a man with boundaries so deep they don't need to be said, she doesn't feel rejected. She feels exposed. Because this trigger isn't about being rude. It's about being unavailable to manipulation. You don't flinch when she tests you. You don't explain yourself. You don't engage in emotional bait. You let silence answer for you. You let your posture set the line. You let your energy say, "You're welcome here," but only if you respect the ground you're walking on. And here's what happens. Her unconscious registers you as something rare, a man who can't be moved, and that unsettles her. Because if she can't move you, she can't control you. And if she can't control you, she has to earn you. That flips the dynamic. Now she is calibrating her behavior to meet your standard. She starts self-monitoring, polishing, competing with herself. And the more she feels the line, the more she wants to be let in. Because those silent boundaries, they don't repel her. They attract the most powerful part of her feminine core, the need to be chosen by a man who cannot be manipulated. And she'll never say it out loud, but deep down, those boundaries, they don't scare her, they turn her on. Trigger number 5, the reflective mirror. She looks at you and sees herself differently, not because you flatter her, not because you chase her, but because your presence forces her to reflect, to rise, to soften, to become more than she was before you appeared. And yet, you say nothing. Because this isn't about praise, it's about mirror induction. The oldest hypnotic principle. Who you are causes her nervous system to adapt to match it. You hold calm, and her anxiety softens. You hold mystery, and she starts revealing. You hold depth, and her shallow masks begin to crumble. She laughs quieter. She speaks slower. She crosses her legs differently. Why? Because a woman becomes what she believes will unlock more of your attention. And if your presence is tuned for truth, she unconsciously purifies herself to stay near it. This is power without pressure, influence without instruction. It's identity shaping by contrast. You never said, "You should be this." You simply are that, and she starts rearranging her identity to be seen by you. That's not attraction. That's voluntary transformation, and it goes deeper. She starts to crave your presence, not for what you give her, but for who she becomes in your reflection. And that is true obsession, because the addiction isn't to your body, it's to the way her soul feels when it's near you. Trigger number 6, the predator's calm. You're not chasing, you're not reacting, you're simply there, still, present, alert. Not anxious, not eager, but aware, like a lion beneath the tree line. Silent, yet impossible to ignore. Because women feel this, deep in their primal wiring. A man who carries himself like a predator, not in threat, but in presence, activates something ancient inside her. Her pupils dilate, her breath shifts, her voice softens, and she can't explain why. Because this isn't about dominance, it's about containment. You walk like a man who doesn't need approval because you're already tuned to outcome. Your movements are intentional. Your gaze is calculating. Your energy doesn't scream. It waits, and that waiting, that calm, it's terrifyingly attractive. Because a man who can wait is a man who's had options, a man who isn't emotionally starving, a man who already knows what to do when the time comes to devour. She doesn't see you like other men. She can't categorize you. She senses something wild, and can't stop scanning for danger. Even while her body leans in, she dreams of you without permission. She pictures things she never meant to, because your energy doesn't beg to be remembered. It simply leaves fingerprints inside her nervous system. That's not confidence, that's predatory calm. And the more she tries to forget it, the deeper it sinks. Trigger number 7, the echo of absence. Most men flood her inbox, cling to her attention, try to stay in her world, because they fear being forgotten. But you disappear, not out of anger, not as a tactic, but because you were never trying to stay. And when a man vanishes without needing to prove anything, a woman's nervous system can't relax. Why? Because every unresolved interaction loops in the unconscious mind. And when she doesn't get closure, when she doesn't know what she did right or wrong, when there's no explanation at all, her mind replays the moments. Her body remembers the tension. Her soul starts to ache from a hole she can't name. This is obsession through psychological absence. The brain must close loops to feel safe. And when you leave one open, without drama, without resentment, without saying goodbye, she keeps chasing your ghost. Was he testing me? Was I not enough? Why did it feel so real if he could just walk away like that? She starts checking, scrolling, revisiting, waiting for a message, but you're gone. And that space you leave, that echo, it becomes louder than any words you ever spoke. This isn't a tactic. It's psychological imprinting through withdrawal. Because silence, when it follows depth, becomes a drug her mind can't detox from. And long after you've disappeared, she's still waiting for a sound that never comes. Trigger number 8, the silent standard. You never tell her what you want. You never explain your values. You never preach, pressure, or push. You simply embody them. Your discipline, your calm, your mystery, your stillness. You don't ask for respect. You become the kind of man whose silence demands it. And she feels it, not in the words, but in the weight of your presence. And slowly, something shifts inside her, not because you ask for submission, but because she begins to rise just to be near your gravity. You are the standard, unspoken, unshakable, uncompromising. And this changes everything. She starts editing herself before speaking. She softens her chaos. She polishes her presence. She disciplines her feminine energy just to be seen by you, because she knows you don't chase, you don't convince, you observe. And if she can't meet the frequency you live on, you'll vanish without a sound. So she adapts, not because you forced her, but because you awakened the part of her that longs to be led without being controlled, to be held, not physically, but inside the frame of a man she can finally trust to be unmoved. This is the final trigger, the one that fuses the others. She doesn't just want you, she wants to become worthy of being in your presence. And when a woman begins to reshape her identity around your silence, that's no longer attraction, that's devotion. You never raised your voice, you never begged, you never explained. But now, you live in her mind, rent-free, inescapable, irresistible. Because you didn't seduce her words, you seduced her nervous system. And once you trigger obsession without even speaking, she can't unfeel it, she can't forget it, she can't stop coming back. Subscribe to the Stoic Architect. Return, rethink, rebuild your frame, and above all, prepare for what comes next. Because the next spell rewires everything.